We're going to study Sefer Ha-Aggadah. Sefer Ha-Aggadah is an anthology by Bialik and Ravnitsky. Bialik was a great poet, Ravnitsky an author. In the early 1900s, they created this anthology called Sefer Ha-Aggadah, Mivhar Ha-Aggadot Shebatalmud U'Amidrashim, a selection of Aggadah from the Talmud and the Midrash. Aggadah is the non-halacha part, non-legal parts of the rabbinic literature.
It's like Ein Yaakov?
Like Ein Yaakov, right. But Ein Yaakov is a compilation of all the Aggadah in the Talmud. And it goes in the order of the Talmud.
And this is selected.
Right, and the difference between Ein Yaakov and Sefer Ha-Aggadah is that Ein Yaakov follows the order of the Talmud and just puts aside, it omits all the halachic discussion. So what you have is sometimes self-standing statements of Aggadah, which some people call Midrash, which are not necessarily related to each other. And they're scattered all over. You skip from one concept to another, and you don't see consistency, because they were brought into the Talmudic discussion by means of association, and sometimes not even association in terms of the content, but rather you have one rabbi who only said 2 or 3 teachings. So once they brought one of his teachings, they bring all of them. They're not related to each other. So it's hard to navigate the book of Ein Yaakov. What they did in Sefer Ha-Aggadah, an amazing work that has been republished dozens of times since the first publication. They organized. First of all, they chose the best written Aggadah and tried not to change the style, not to touch it, except for where there was really a clear mistake in a problem in the original text. And then they organized it by themes. So it's a thematic book, starting with, in general, an introduction to Midrash, then following the order of Tanakh from the Tanakh from Bereshit to the end of Tanakh, then speaking about the destruction of the first temple, the second temple, then talking about the deeds or the actions of the sages, meaning the post-biblical period. Then they speak about the themes of Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, the Hebrew language, exile, redemption, the world to come. Then about man, his needs, his character traits. So as you read it, there's not only it's consistent, but there's a certain theme that leads you from one phrase to another. So I think for a while we could really delve into this Aggadah to understand this literature. So some of these Aggadot that we're going to review now, because of the 3 weeks, some of them are famous as they deal with the Hurban, with the destruction. So I think that many people revisit these Aggadot every year, but still. This is Sefer Ha-Aggadah.
No, I have it home.
It's,
you can see. Where are you?
It's page 142. It's the topic of Hurban Bayit Sheni. So it's first part, the first part of Haleg Ha-Aggadah, and it's Kerech Aleph, Halek Shlishi. What is this? Oh no, sorry. Halek Rishon, Perek Yud. Halek Rishon, Perek Yud. It deals with Hurban Bayit Sheni. So this is an entry that's taken from Yoma. Shanu Rabotenu, 40 שנה קודם חורבן הבית, לא היה עולה גורל בימין, ולא היה לשון של זהורית מלבין, ולא היה נר מערבי דולק. So the rabbis say that already 40 years before the destruction of the temple, which is the year 37 of the Common Era, which corresponds also with the reign of Agrippa, the son of Herod. I mean, that's already the kings of Israel are not the righteous kings from the period of the Maccabim. They are the descendants of Herod, which was more a Roman than a Jew. He's called Herod the Great, but it was really a very wicked person, very violent, king, meaning he was a megalomaniac. He built, as we know, he built sites all over Israel. Most famous is Masada, but also there's a mountain called Herodion. Also Caesarea was built by Herod in honor of Caesar, who was his patron, and also built a mountain near Bethlehem called Herodion. That's also a mini fortress, not as big as Masada. And also the tower that we call Migdal David, the Tower of David. As you enter the old city, it became emblematic of Yerushalayim. You know, on many stamps you see this tower was really originally built by Herod in memory of his brother Fatzael. It is an Edomite name, Fatzael, which doesn't exist anymore in Hebrew, but was preserved in the Arabic in the name Faisal. It's a Fazael was the original name in Edom, yeah? And Herod built the tower in memory of his brother after he killed him. So when he executed him, he executed his brother, and then he felt remorse and built the tower in his memory. He killed anyone who was related to him, he killed at one point or another. So dangerous king. So already this is felt in Yerushalayim. The Kohanim in the Beit HaMikdash became corrupt. The position of the high priest was sold for money or given to someone who was related or friendly with the Roman government. And as a result, the rabbis say that the miracles that before that were evident in the Beit HaMikdash disappeared. What were those miracles? Two of them, one of them, the first one, doesn't seem to be supernatural. Whenever they would cast the lots on the two goats on Yom Kippur, they would have two goats, and on two pieces of wood, mahogany, some say eshkiroa is the Hebrew for mahogany. One would say La Hashem, mean the full word Ladonai, and the other one would say La Azazel, meaning to be sent. That's the scapegoat that is being sent to the desert. And it will always happen that when you pull out the lots, on the right hand of the Kohen, the word La Hashem would come, and on the left hand, La Azazel. And people saw it as a symbolic sign of good omen, because we naturally associate right with the good and left with the evil or not so good. We'd apologize to all the lefty people. I have three of my kids are lefty, so of course I'm not inherited it from my grandfather, so I'm not biased. But this is how it works, right? People associate even the word right. Right means the direction, but also something which is right. Whereas the Latin word for left, siniestra, is sinister, right? Sinister, dark, not right. So always when the Goral came in the right hand, people were happy. But the last 40 years, it didn't come on the right hand. Always the left hand of the Kohen would pick up the word La Hashem. That was one. The other one is more of a miraculous event, and that is Lashon Shel Zehorit Malbin. Also had to do with the Yom Kippur services. The scapegoat, the Mishnah says that the Lashon Shel Zehorit Haya Kosher Ben Keranav. They would tie crimson colored wool between the goats of the Sa'ir HaMishtaleh, the scapegoat, and as they would push it from the mountain, it would turn white. To show the verse, Im yu hatayechem kashanim, kasheleg yalbinu. God says when you do teshuvah, even if your sins are stained, like you have stained your garment like a stain of blood that cannot be removed, it will turn white like snow. So that was a symbolic act on Yom Kippur. At the height of the service of Yom Kippur, they go and they push this scapegoat down the mountain, and the crimson wool turns white. Of course, you couldn't see that because it's all the way down the slope. So up until 40 years before the destruction, they would have another piece of that wool tied up on the doors of the Echal. So like a big piece of fabric, dyed red, hanging over the doors of the Echal. And all the Israelites, everybody's standing around the Echal. They cannot get inside. They're limited, but they could see this big red fabric there waving in the wind, and they wait for it to turn white. And simultaneously, as the scapegoat would roll down the mountain, and its piece of wool would turn white, this would turn white as well. But 40 years before the destruction, that miracle stopped happening. And people were very frustrated, and as a result, what did the Kohanim do? Instead of reflecting on their actions and trying to create a spiritual purification in Bet HaMikdash, say only the Kohanim who are righteous will serve, they found a simpler solution. What was it?
To paint.
No, they couldn't do it in front of everyone. They just didn't hang this red fabric there anymore. They say, the priestly council made a decision that it causes public disturbance. They didn't say that, but that would be, if it would be something today that politicians would have to deal with. They would just remove that object that tells people that things are not right. Just cover up. So it was a cover up. They removed it. Then third, and that was more something that only the Kohanim were aware of. Lo haya ner ma'aravi doleg. The western candle of the menorah would be usually would burn permanently. No matter how much oil you put in it, it would burn constantly. But in those 40 years before the destruction, this stopped. So those are three constants. Then there's another one that says "V'hayud daltot ha'echal niftachot me'alehen," and the doors of the echal, the doors of the temple, would open outwards. As much as they tried to lock them, they put them back and they close the door, they open up. עד שגער בהן רבי יוחנן בן זכאי ואמר, היכל היכל מפני מה אתה מביא את עצמך? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who became the leader of Am Yisrael after the destruction, rebuked the doors of the Echal. Metaphorically, it's like he's talking to the Echal, and he says, why are you doing that? יודע אני בך שסופך עתיד לחרב. I know that the destruction is coming. וכבר נתנבא עליך זכריה בן עידו, פתח לבנון דלתך, ותאכל אש בארזך. In the prophecy of Zechariah, which is one of the minor prophets, we read, פתח לבנון דלתך, open your doors, O Lebanon. Well, Lebanon is a metaphor, a description of the temple. It was called Ha-Lebanon because it was built with cedars from Lebanon. Yeah. It was a mighty tree and was a magnificent structure. So it's called Lebanon. So he says, open your doors, O Lebanon, and let fire consume your cedars. So this is literally a description of Bet HaMikdash. And so the idea of opening the doors is as if saying there's no divine protection anymore. God opened the doors, and anyone who wants to come in can come and destroy the temple. Why is it important that it's Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai who makes this statement? Because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai eventually was smuggled out of Yerushalayim according to the Midrash. According to history, probably didn't happen that way. But according to the Midrash, he decided to broker peace with the Romans. At a certain point, as they were fighting for independence against the Romans, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai realized that it's futile. It's never going to happen. They're not going to win the war against the Romans, and the only thing that they're going to achieve is total destruction. So he started telling people that we should put down our weapons, and at least if we surrender, we manage to salvage something of Yerushalayim. They wouldn't listen to him. So at a certain point, he arranged to be smuggled out of Yerushalayim and spoke with the emperor and made an exchange. He said, "Ten li Yavne v'chachamea, please let me have the yeshiva in Yavne and the scholars there." And the story there also connects with this one. It's the insight of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He realized that we're at that point in time, we're at a inferior position to the Romans. There's no way that we can defeat them. So he says, instead of fighting them physically, let me preserve the heritage and tradition of the Jewish people by securing the yeshiva in Yavne and the scholars, and we will be able to reopen or open a new center for the study of Torah. And that's what he did, because he realized that the most important thing for the people is not the physical structures, but the sense of community and sense of leadership and learning and all that. So in the long term, we know that he was right, because Roman culture and all that is associated with it has disappeared. Meanwhile, we are alive and kicking, really, as Am Yisrael, and continuing this tradition. But what Rabbi Haim Ovadia did wasn't easy, because he had a lot of opposition after that, first from the zealots. The people who wanted to keep fighting weren't happy with that. They said, don't do, peace with the Romans is treason. You cannot do that. The priests were not happy, because he was telling them that the Bet HaMikdash, the temple, is no longer the center of power, and it's going to be destroyed. And that the Torah world is or the yeshiva, the scholars, is the new center of power. But also, he had opposition from some scholars, some rabbis, because he was not from the family of David. He was the only Nasi and Abedin that was not from the Davidic dynasty. And that was because the Romans did not want to have a descendant of David as the leader of the Sanhedrin or the Bedin, because the people who came from David had royal status and could also entertain messianic hopes. So the Romans didn't want to risk the stability in the region by giving a position to someone who has this kind of political stature. So they removed Rabban Gamliel from power, and they let Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai be in charge, but only lasted one generation. Once Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai passed away, the control came back to the house of David. It was Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, etc. So here Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai says, Yodeh ani becha shesofcha leharev. He says, I know that you're going to be destroyed. He's not talking to the temple, really. He's talking to the people. He's talking to the people who keep on fighting, and he says, don't keep fighting, because you are going to destroy the temple. And really, as a matter of fact, historians in the last couple of decades were able to prove that Titus would not have destroyed the temple if not for our resistance. The only reason that the Romans decided to destroy the temple in Yerushalayim was that the Jews were so stubborn and kept fighting against all odds and against all normal behavior of other nations around the Roman Empire, that the Romans said, what are we going to do? How can we stop them from fighting? And at a certain point, the councils of the emperor said, you have to destroy the temple. And he was reluctant. Why was he reluctant? Why? He didn't want to destroy the temple, because the Romans were pagans. They worshipped idols. So they believed in many deities. They believed that everything is a god. So for them, even though they don't worship directly the God of Israel, but they don't want to upset him.
Which is why, at the end, it needed to be destroyed.
By whom?
It doesn't matter by whom, but it needed to be destroyed because, number one, the Jews were using them in a non-proper way. Number two,
there is one approach that says that the temple was really already empty. This is what Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai says, and it's true. There was no spiritual backup for the temple. It became just a machine where people would come, bring sacrifices, and go back to their actions. And meanwhile, the Kohanim, the priests, were using it as their own private bank account. You're right. This is one problem. The other thing is that the Romans, because they believed in many gods, they thought the God of Israel is also powerful. We don't want to upset him by destroying his temple. And really, in all of the Roman Empire, all of their conquests, the only temple they destroyed was the temple in Yerushalayim, because of our resistance and stubbornness. So Rabbi Haim Ovadia says it's not going to help. Like you said, the foundations, the spiritual foundations of the temple are no longer here. The doors are open. it's going to happen. You'd better quit now. They didn't listen to him, but that is the idea of Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai addressing the Echal. He's basically talking to the people.